Well, now the boot's on the other foot. It looks as though protesters are fighting back against Daniel Andrews and not just having confrontations with police. They've come up with a very clever campaign to put a boot outside of everybody's houses as an indication of giving Dan the boot. That's the way they feel about him. And I think it's a brilliant idea because apparently there was only about 3,000 people they initially tried to get onto this, and now it's burgeoned to 20,000. And I have a feeling it will get into the hundreds of thousands eventually. It'll make a huge statement. It's non-violent and it's very effective, and it'll make some nice photo ops for the press. It won't be quite as spectacular as having the thugs from the Victorian police beating up people and putting him into ICU, which is what happened to the poor bastard who was tackled to the ground and kicked. That's just unbelievable. But what I love about this is Daniel Andrews, that the ultimate narcissist he is. He feels he's the victim. He's enraged because someone had the audacity to put a couple of boots outside the shed where he carried his father's coffin. And to Daniel Andrews, that's a despicable act, a shameful act, and a low act. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. The damage he has done to Victorians, how he's done it to individuals through depression and prolonged lockdowns, through businesses that have had to close down. It's just staggering that this guy just basically turns it around and makes himself the victim. The same tactics that Anastasia Palaszczuk uses in Queensland. It's an old Labor trick, and it's not going to work, Dan. People are fed up with you. And I think this particular campaign is a brilliant move. Yeah, following on from that, a Swinburne University law dean has actually compared the lockdowns unfavourably to North Korea. He says North Korea has more rights than we do, in spite of the fact that there's supposed to be a Victorian Charter of Human Rights, but it's not worth the paper it's written on, because in the case of a medical emergency, as we have now, then all other legislation, such as the Victorian civil rights legislation, is basically null and void. So it's a total waste of time. And of course, this was instituted by Labor. Another absolute joke. And finally, back to Anastasia. Anastasia Palaszczuk has said that she's quite happy. Well, I don't know if she's happy, but she says she's prepared to lose the election if it means keeping Queenslanders safe. In other words, keeping the border shut. I mean, she is so dogmatic and inflexible. Both her and Andrews have shared those traits of being incredibly stubborn and inflexible people. And I've got to say, Scott Morrison has these traits as well. I'm getting pretty fed up with our leaders because they don't have the flexibility to pivot when it's required. And I just think Anastasia is kidding herself. Well, is New South Wales a basket case? No, not now it isn't. They seem to be running okay, and they have opened up their borders. They had a few problems with clusters, but they've got over that. Life goes on, Anastasia. You don't have to basically destroy the tourism industry in Queensland because you want to keep us safe. The nanny state on steroids. I'm so sick to death of it. Life is full of risks, calculated risks, and that's what I'm saying that has happened in New South Wales. They've made a rational decision to allow calculated risks and allow people to move around freely. But Anastasia Palaszczuk is not the brightest person on earth. She's basically being led by the nose by Jeanette Young, the Chief Medical Officer, and it's rather sad, really. But at least the Victorians are fighting back with the Give Dan the Boot. I really think that's a fantastic move, and I hope you get lots and lots of support. I think you deserve it. It's a really smart tactic. Civil disobedience without any violence. I think that's the way to go. So good luck to you guys, and hopefully we will see the arse end of Daniel Andrews. Maybe he can just lock himself up in that shed and in the fetal position and wonder what would have been if he hadn't been such an arsehole to the Victorian people. Well, we'll see. Either he'll resign, or more likely the Labor Party will tell him, tap on the shoulder, sorry, it's time to go, Dan. Either way, it'll be a great day, and maybe we should all celebrate when that day does occur. You know, one thing that really annoys me online is I've replied to a few sites that have had with a fairly lengthy thought out reply, and the people running the sites had just decided to ignore what I've said. The most recent one is a guy called Angry Astronaut. I've actually stopped watching his channel. He's becoming a little repetitive, but I liked where he came from initially. And he made a comment about technology, and I actually said to him some of the stuff he's saying didn't make sense, and I thought it was illogical, and I gave my ideas, and he just ignored it. He didn't even bother having a discussion, which I think is really piss poor. I mean, sometimes these sites are too big for these people to do that, but other people like Isaac Arthur, who's actually a futurologist, and he's got a physics background, so he knows all about the science. He always used to reply to what I said, and on most occasions anyway. It just depends on the personality of the person. I mean, if someone's got a site where they've got about 1 million subscribers, you don't expect to hear back from them because they're just flooded with people. I mean, that's fair enough, but I'm talking about sites that have got, say, between 1 and, say, 20,000 subscribers. And those sort of sites, you know, people can reply back. Living cheap in Southeast Asia, that was JC. He always replied. I'll give him that. He was a gentleman. He actually bothered taking the time to reply to most of the posts. And the same for James Blick, who actually runs a business in Spain, like food tourism business. And he still has the time to get back to me on most of the postings I make. So it's not that hard. But some people, I don't know what their mentality is, but it really annoys me. If you make an intelligent posting, they don't have to agree with it, but they can at least acknowledge it at the very least. That's my sort of YouTube type beef. And of course, I'll always respond to someone. Very rare if I miss out, probably because of technical reasons. It won't be because I'm just not going to reply. Oh, well, it depends on the type of comments. If there's stuff I don't understand, I don't bother, because I've got a few there that are just weird, and I won't reply to them. But most people are pretty good that are on my site. I'm very happy with the people who visit it, and they're generally fairly complimentary, which is nice. And they come up with some good information too. So, for instance, today I've downloaded a video on anti-statins. I know there's a lot of people that are against them. I'm not necessarily sold on that idea, but I'm quite prepared to look at the video that's been recommended to me, and I'll make my own decision. Yeah, just having a wander down Lake Street, heading towards Woolworths in the CBD. Not raining now, thank God, that's good. Quite warm, it's no problems there, but just a bit of precipitation earlier in the day. And it was heavier at night, I could hear it. Anyway, it's quite nice up this part of town, I quite like it here. I've got to rethink my whole living situation to some degree, because I'm going to be shifting from a particular type of benefit that's not assets tested to the pension. And if you do that, then you're only allowed to have about 260,000 in assets above your own home, for instance, and your own home cannot exceed to the value of about 550,000, something like that. So the place I'm staying at the moment, which I'm quite happy to live there, but it only cost me a couple of $100,000. So I may be better off buying a nicer place somewhere else, maybe even a house, although I don't want the maintenance of a house. A villa unit would probably be okay, but I've got to look around, and I'll tell you, there's nothing on the market in a place like Trinity Beach, for instance. Although Trinity Beach is not particularly practical as a location for me to live, this is fantastic here because I can walk to major places, you know, like the supermarkets are in walking distance. In Trinity Beach I'd have to go to Smithfield, which is not as nice, not that nice a shopping centre, although it does have both Woolworths and Coles under the one roof. But if I needed to say go to the hospital, that's quite a few kilometres down the road, so it all depends what I need to do. You know, Cairns Central is quite reasonable for a shopping mall. I'm not a big fan of shopping malls, but it's probably one of the better ones, and there's nothing like that in Smithfield to my knowledge, because it's a bit of a hub. But I've got to say, Trinity Beach itself is a beautiful part of the world, and I think I could quite happily live there. So I don't know. As I say, there's no properties on the market anyway. There's very few. It's I think people are holding off. Maybe that might change at the end of the month when all the rental support goes and the job keepers are reduced. That may change things. I don't know. Yeah, it's a wait and see. And we've got the election coming up as well, which is another spanner in the works in October. So it's not a great time to necessarily purchase a place. Got a lot of things to think about. It's a nice area here, this parklands, with the scout shop. It's a bit kitsch, but I sort of like that. I don't know. Not usually a big fan of kitsch, but I think that's okay. It's quite a decent venue, but it doesn't get used much. It's a bit of a shame. Never been there for any sort of concert or whatever, but it's got a nice feel. This is the arts precinct, and that cost a bucket load to build, the Performing Arts Centre. But you know, it's all very nice. It's certainly improves the streetscape. So I quite like it. And then you've got the hills in the background, which I also enjoy. Don't enjoy so much Captain Cook Highway, Sheridan Street. A lot of traffic. Yeah, just went to reject shop, just looking for garbage bags. I forgot to buy them the other day. Asked the girl, she said, "Do you have them?" She said, "Yes, we do." And she just pointed down the other end of the shop, mumbled something about a particular aisle it was in. And I couldn't find the bloody thing, so I just walked out without buying anything. So just terrible customer service. But it's frustrating for me because it's hard for me to see the stuff on the shelves with my bad eyesight. So I really do need that extra help. Anyway, I'll pick it up at the supermarket the next few days. Yeah, I've been playing this game that I hadn't actually played for a long time, called Forest Village, medieval feudal forest village. And it's a sort of a city builder, but in medieval times. And it's quite addictive because you've got quite a variety of structures to build, and so it's got quite a bit of complexity in it. But one thing that's frustrating is your citizens have a tendency to die of starvation or hypothermia. Sometimes it's good to have a bit of difficulty in the game. You want a bit of complexity and you want a bit of a challenge. So I'll keep hammering away at it, but from time to time I have a mass extinction take place in my population, which is a bit perturbing.